Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Jess Marshall podcast. This week, I get my buddy back, the law hawk, Bryan Wilson, straight out of Tarrant County, Fort Worth, Texas. We're going to talk all things law, civil rights, Me Too, etc. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Just like the last one, I'm sure this one will be extremely high energy. I'm stoked to have the law hawk back on. You're probably wondering who I am. My name is Jess Marshall. I am a roofing and restoration contractor, and I'm also a real estate investor. Love construction, know a ton about it. If you need help with your insurance claim or you're getting screwed over by your insurance company at all, you should message me on Instagram at Jess from the Northwest, and I'll help you out. A reason why I started this podcast was to talk to other do-it-yourself type folks. I'm a very ambitious guy, very relentless, very resilient. I wanted to talk to other people who I saw were living their lives in a passionate, fearless way. Hope you enjoy this podcast. I think you will. Let's get cranking. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Jess Marshall podcast. Wow. Mark that swipe. Bring it. Listen, you come off a match and you played in the late 90s or the early 2000s, and you don't have rake marks on your back and you're a forward, you didn't play right.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
You watch some of those old school rugby
Especially
matches.
men's teams when I was in college.
Yes.
I used to play men's teams, and I'm like, what is wrong with these?
They love that
What
shit.
is wrong with these people? These guys are assholes. And now, as an adult,
You see why?
I'm like, I get it.
Bunch of sadists.
Bunch of little punks over here. They need to learn a lesson.
Man, when I was playing with the Quins, we played this like under 23 South African team. And we beat
South
them.
Africans are so good.
They are.
They're just.
These dudes were all small, which is very rare because the South Africans are.
But they're scary
a bunch
fast,
of
though.
huge Dutch dudes.
Really?
Bro, I can't even explain the speed of the phases in that match. And like the old school guys.
If you get the smaller teams, you should still be worried that they can just take off at any point in time, and you're not going to catch them. You're not going to come close.
We could not get them with the ball to the ground. Like their offload game, as soon as they're in contact, they're looking for support, and they were running such awesome lines.
Yeah.
It was crazy, man.
They have plays, and then they just get to trot over to the middle, which just slowly trot and put the ball down.
That's a little on the demoralizing side, especially when you have to stand under your posts and watch them kick the conversion. And if you're like one of the team leaders, you're like, "Let's go, head up." Everyone else is like, "What the fuck is going on?"
I'm just gonna smash somebody on the next play. I don't even
For
care.
real, man. No doubt. What have you been up to, man? You moved your offices?
So. Moved offices. I was right by my house, which was lovely. I got to drive a golf cart to my office and back.
What?
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
That is a
that.
very law hawk thing to do.
Especially like wrapped, like law hawk golf cart.
You have a wrapped law hawk golf cart?
Jacked up with
Is that
big
on your
wheels.
social media anywhere?
It's probably not. I should really do more of that.
Once you sign with Harper Belmont, you should do a promo in that son of a bitch.
It's probably made a couple of commercials. There's one commercial where I was doing a personal injury commercial, and at the very end, my idea was, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have this golf cart just, like, I'm going to get it going in a circle, and I'm going to figure out a way to make it keep going in a circle, and then it's going to wreck me.
Is it on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's on there.
Can we find that on his YouTube? Is it, you got to see What's the title? Personal injury?
It was a trucker commercial. It's all about... So we have this truck. If y'all haven't seen this one, a lot of people. This one flew under the radar, and it's one of my funniest commercials.
Oh, we gotta find it.
We should definitely play it. If you've never seen the truck, yeah, that's it. Crazy trucker gets dealt with.
Oh, I haven't seen this. No, I feel like I've seen all your shit.
This one's number 2. Go back real quick. It's.
I was gonna say great sprinting form. You look like you're running in the Olympic torch there.
So crazy trucker gets dealt with. So look at that, 6.3 thousand views. That's nothing. And watch how crazy this commercial is.
Okay.
Look at this actually golf cart right there.
Bryan Wilson,
that was a wall of beer.
You blow your back out there, man.
You texting her again?
I'm trying to drive.
I'll take us both out.
Yeah. Dang! Get back here! We got a baked turkey in the oven. need to bring it by for supper. Dump the cargo and bring the data box now. Answer that.
For no reason right there.
Oh my God.
Don't let big trucks and insurance companies hide the evidence. Call Bryan Wilson, the Texas Law Hawk, today.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it fucked my knee up real bad.
Bro.
That was sick.
Have you or a loved one been injured in an accident that wasn't your fault? If so, call Bryan Wilson, the Texas Law Hawk, today!
I don't know if y'all can see, but I'm limping. Like
I
this
can
thing,
see that.
this thing
Damn.
wrecked me. It might not look like it's going very fast, but this is a big machine that's gonna run into you so hard.
Did you? I mean, did you injure your back on that move alone?
So we can go scene by scene. There's so much to unload on this.
You're
one,
like
but
full
yeah,
on
this is-
airborne.
I thought you would end up representing the trucker. That would have been
right.
He's
all the cans just spilling
he's
out of
on
there.
retainer.
like that lawyer we looked at last time.
Which one?
Like I'm standing outside the courtroom,
With the
courthouse
child
with
molester?
Yep, with my great client.
What is he? Oh,
Remember
that
on
one-
TikTok?
I remember that guy that was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Like,
and making him so
This was on his
uncomfortable and be like,
third DUI. He was accused of hitting a car while going to get more alcohol, and
I
don't
don't
know
remember that one. I
cops
remember there was
and-
one where he was outside with like a guy that was charged with a sex offense with a child.
With a child.
And then,
Yeah, that
you
was
know,
a different guy.
And
That
then was
guy's
like pointing at him and was
messed
like,
up.
see this guy charged with this? And I'm like, I don't think he wants this.
I don't think that his
don't think
client
this is gonna be
understood
good.
what was going on.
No, and this is horrible. He's like creating a lot of records of everything that are not really something you can get expunged. I was shocked by that. But yeah, that golf cart, I just like wrapped a bungee cord. That was like probably the third take we did. And I know. So I wrapped a bungee cord, like got the wheel all the way to the left, put a brick or something heavy on the gas pedal and started whipping around in a circle, which is a lot of G-force when you're in it. And first time it just takes off towards my cameraman's truck. And I'm talking like I sprint after this thing, and it was just like a movie. I'm talking like within a like split second of it just ramming into his truck, I like jump in there, slam on
Oh
the
my
brake,
God.
and it's like, and it's this close to his truck. And I was like, "Ooh, okay, I got to rethink this.
Damn.
I got to rethink this whole bungee cord thing because it just the first one broke." And so I get it going again, and that's when I have to do 3 takes with this thing. And the golf cart hitting you is not fun, especially it's not going full speed. Well, it was fully gassed down, but it's not going full speed. But still, like this thing whipping around like that.
Yeah.
So the first 2 takes, we couldn't figure out what happened. It wasn't funny. And I'm like, this is really funny in my head. What is going on? Why is this
Right.
not funny? And so it whacked me the first time. That was the worst. It fucked my knee up. Second one, it whacked me again, hurt my knee even worse. I'm like, God, why are these not funny? And so we just studied it for a second. I was like, oh, it's because I'm anticipating the golf cart. And the whole joke is that I get out of it like, what's up? I don't even care.
Right.
And then bam, that's when it hits me. And so that's what makes the joke. And so I had to just stare directly at the camera as I'm like,
Waiting on it.
this golf cart is going to hurt real bad. Oh, and then it just took me out that third time. And that's the one where I got all the way upside down. We're like, all right, that's the take. Like, it's going to happen, whether that's the take or not. That's the
That's
take.
called entrepreneurial dedication, man.
Yeah. Oh,
Dedicated
man.
to the task at hand.
I had to be on crutches. I was limping around for a few weeks after
Damn,
that.
brother.
Yeah, it messed my knee up pretty good.
Seriously, no stuntman career now. After the ankles plus that, you got
I
to
think
stick with the. We got to stick with the luring. My first observation was the rugby beard, which I'm in full support of.
You like the beard?
Yeah, I feel like you could intimidate the fuck out of opposing counsel in court with that.
I don't know. It's I'm very Irish, I think. Well, according to my DNA records, but yeah, it's a very red beard I have. I didn't really realize that. It's first and only beard I've ever grown.
Have you ever heard the theories that Freud had about the Irish?
No, what did he say?
Look this up, Sohail, because I'm sure I'm going to butcher this, but he pretty much said, like, the Irish are, like, sociopaths. Like, they don't feel guilt. they don't really feel like emotion. He said like
I didn't know that was due to me being Irish. I just always thought I was kind of a psychopath.
Freud's opinion of the Irish when it comes to like psychoanalysis is very it's hard. It's hard.
I thought the Irish people had generally had a really rough time. I mean, they didn't have a lot of good nutrition back a long time ago.
Then all they were eating was potatoes.
Yeah, it's not really a whole lot of good nutrition.
And whiskey. And then they ran out of potatoes.
Yeah, and things were real bad for them.
And obviously snakes were a problem because they needed a saint to come over there and get all the saints off the island.
And yeah, also heavy on the religion, which isn't going to help a lot of things. I mean, if they're following all that. Like, we also have to
and the Catholics, man, they're big on that guilt thing, right?
Yeah, my mom is Catholic and follows it, and you can see the Catholic guilt. I mean, like they had probably done some horrible things. I grew up in a very small, weird, almost cultish Lutheran school.
Yeah.
I think I had like 11 kids in my 8th grade class, and all of them are geniuses. Like every single one of them is very, very smart, but they're extremely sheltered, every one of us. And so whenever I got to high school, for example, I remember seeing everybody walking down the hallway doing this, and they'd like hold out your hand real quick. They'd slap hand, and I remember thinking like, what just happened? What are they doing? And I eventually figured out, they're like slapping hands as like a communication method to indicate that they are
cool with each other.
Yeah, cool with each other. That didn't happen at my school. It was something I had to learn like right when I got to public school. So I had 11 or 12 kids in my 8th grade class, and then I get to high school, and it was like 1,500 kids. And I was like, I got to impress all these kids. I got to show them the
So you go from like the sheltered elementary and middle to like a public high school?
Yeah, and I was like, I gotta show these kids I'm the craziest person here.
Oh, my God.
And then came the alternative school. And
did you have to go to one of those?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Acting out?
My freshman year. Yeah, so there's like a news camera that was outside. They brought out all of the Tandy scholars, which is like, I don't know what top people it was, but it was like they got all the nerds out there, and I was one of them, one of the nerds. And there's a news camera that's just like going by, and as they're going by me, I just like pulled down my pants, and I was just like, yeah!
Oh, my God.
And they were like, you are going straight to alternative school. Like, there's not even and really, honestly, looking back on it, I'm kind of mad about it. I'm like, it's just like, yeah, the act of pulling down your pants is bad, but I had boxers on, and they like grabbed me like, what did you just do? You just
I don't know, man. That's very
embarrassed the whole school.
It's very Louis C.K. of you.
Is it?
I don't know.
You're right. Well, I think Louis C.K. would ask for permission to pull out his dick, and I think they thought he was like joking or like didn't. I don't know the full story. We know his version. We know other people's version is it was like kind of a scary, sheltered in type thing where they like I didn't really feel like I could leave, but his version is, oh yeah, I just would ask them, and apparently you need to ask him again. And I was like, oh. Well, I didn't know. I don't know what to think about that.
Well, it was all up and coming, like people under his tutelage.
So they kind of
there was a power thing.
So they would kind of feel like they had to.
Yes.
What, they were like comedy understudies or something?
Yeah.
Like,
or
he was their comedy mentor and they were their comedy
either
proteges?
that or they were working on the show or they were,
working on the show is understudies. But if it's your boss, man, that's got to be hard. If you're in their position, like I'm not gonna. I don't know. Then again, like maybe just walk out of the room.
Yeah, I like with a lot of the Me Too stuff. I'm just like, okay, how does it get to that point?
Yeah.
What's the first time he was like, I think it'd be a good idea today for me to ask someone if I could do this.
It kind of seems like he's all about the humiliation, like of people just looking at him like. Oh,
he's very self-deprecating.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't even know. I'm Louis C.K. And like that's, I don't know. That gets him off.
I don't know, man. More power to you, as long as you're not hurting somebody else.
I like that he apologized. He had a whole entire show, I think, called Sorry.
Yeah,
and was able to come back. That's one of the rare examples. I think most of the time, the people that escape nasty media attacks like that. if you apologize, you're kind of fucked. If you don't apologize, you might not be. And he's one of the rare examples that he apologized and still kind of was like, yeah. And I think that speaks to his talent. I think he's a very good stand-up comedian.
Well, and probably his audience too.
Oh, audience,
because when you're a comedian, a lot of your audience appreciates and loves the irreverence.
Yeah.
So if you say, yeah, I fucked up, but like I'm a fuck up, because that's kind of like,
I think you should be allowed to get, I mean, depending on how bad the fuck up is, I think it should not be an automatic cancel depending on what the situation is.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how the media is like automatic cancel, especially if you apologize, you're screwed. But Louis C.K. is a rare example of somebody that was like, boy, did I screw up. Let me tell you, I pulled it out. I did all that stuff. It was bad, and I understand. And, oh, my God, he lost. I think what was the total amount of money? Like $120 million worth of.
A lot.
But so I don't know about Louis C.K. This comment's not with him, but just like with your line of work, what is a society if we don't allow for the chance of rehabilitation, right? I mean,
very true.
Look,
just straight cancellations.
Do you know how many people would be canceled if social media had come out 10 years before it came out? Like, you know how many people are lucky, including me, not for Me Too shit, but just for dumb shit?
We're in a weird area. How old are you?
43.
We're in a weird age where we got to see what it was like before social media, before phones, before recordings and all that stuff. And then we got to see it kind of develop. And so there's a lot of people that got caught up in that stuff. Like, everybody has a video camera in their pocket. Like, you probably shouldn't say really dumb things or do really dumb things. I mean, I guess unless they're really funny to everybody universally. But like, now it's anybody has a quality camera in their pocket. Can record incredible footage
for real,
pretty much as long as they want to at any point in time. And so if you're doing something dumb, you're gonna get recorded very likely.
So speaking of Me Too, did you hear the story that came out yesterday or the day before about Warren Beatty? You know who Warren Beatty is? Old school actor, Bugsy. He was married to Annette Bening for a long time. Pretty famous, older. He's got to be in his 80s now. Sohail, maybe. He's
well, he did a lot of things.
him.
If he's in the I don't know who this is.
You've never seen Warren Beatty? You know who Annette Bening is, probably.
I'm not good at.
He's 85.
85. So there's a gal.
He was born in 1937. Do you know how much stuff he's done before iPhones?
Bruh. So there's a gal suing him. She filed on Monday in some LA court, suing him civilly for Me Too, saying that he came after her when she was like 14 or 15.
Oh.
And we're
there's not really going to be a statute of limitations most likely on that.
How are we? Well, in California passed that law, right? There is no statute of limitations on Me Too type stuff. I mean, I obviously know.
When it comes to criminal offenses, that's pretty common even in Texas that they're not going to make a statute of limitations, which it's a double-edged sword. So you have sometimes where it's like, yeah, that needed to happen. There's an obvious reason why there's not a statute of limitations because this dude was older, that person was very younger. But when it comes to I don't know, civil cases, I'm less inclined to make it a entirely no statute of limitations situation because there's really not going to be any evidence of that. And like back then, whenever it happened, let's see, how many? So he's 85.
85
minus 14. So 80,
I don't know how old she was.
Yeah, I mean that's
like I don't know how much. I don't know how old she is.
Let's say it's
now.
in like this.
In 73, she was 14 and 15, so it was multiple times. So 73, he was.
But like, what are they going to use? What's she going to use as evidence? Does she have like she's got to have like what, love letters or something like that? I mean, you weren't texting back then.
I mean, love letters would be pretty damn good evidence.
Yeah.
And that's an
Journal
example.
entries.
That's an example of journal entries.
Yeah.
That would be a contemporaneous description of it. I mean, obviously, it'd be arguments both ways, but probably if somebody is 14 and doing that, they're writing out what is really happening to them. I mean, that seems like that would be more reliable to me than something that there's an obvious motivation for money, let's say, or something else. And I don't know, maybe she's just trying to let it be known before this guy dies and his legacy is
I was about to say that's
essentially preserved. Like that's probably what it was. And in 73, I mean, I think that's how a lot of these cases were done.
Roman,
I mean, it was pretty much like
Roman Polanski. I mean, that
yeah,
whole
you
case.
get up there and you have to testify and suffer through cross-examination, but there's not going to be video evidence, recordings. There's not going to be a whole lot of stuff. And so it's a lot harder to prove that kind of stuff back in the day. But yeah, this is the first time I'm hearing about it. I actually don't know who this guy. What movies is he in? Or does?
A lot of them. He was in Bonnie and Clyde. Bugsy. I don't know if you ever saw that. That was a pretty good, like, it was one of the kind of the first gangster comic book styled movies.
Heaven
gosh.
Can Wait.
A lot of really good movies. He was in a movie with Halle Berry and Eddie Murphy called Bowfinger.
I don't think I've seen a single
Oh,
one.
he was in Bowfinger?
Yeah, bro. He's like the senator.
Yeah,
who's
dang.
getting with Halle Berry, like
I don't
young
think I've seen
Halle
a
Berry.
single movie on that
Really?
list that I just saw. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I could be wrong. I used to like Dick Tracy back in the day.
Love Affair, Bulworth, not.
Oh, and look
Bulworth.
at that!
Yeah,
How
yeah.
ironic is that? Rules don't apply.
2016, bro was in a movie.
Like rules don't apply, everyone.
That's
Get it?
That's crazy.
That's what set her over the edge. No,
Yeah, that, no doubt.
yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, man.
I remember
It's-
Dick Tracy. I barely remember. I remember I was kind of into him when I was younger, and I don't remember what he does or. I remember he's like some kind of detective.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if you're in the public eye now, I mean, aren't you, like, if you were a famous athlete, I'd be getting, like, all of the releases and waivers signed, getting, like, a video of, like, consent.
who?
Didn't Derek Jeter do that? Didn't he get, like,
I think that's-
consents on video?
I think that's such a good idea, but if
you don't think that
if you don't
ruins the mood a little bit?
you know what? If it ruins the mood, and
Move on.
you're an A-list celebrity actor or somebody else, who cares if it ruins the mood? You move on to the next one if you're a single person.
Yeah.
I mean, like, don't take a chance that you're gonna have to deal with this kind of stuff because even a completely fictitious, made-up one can potentially hammer you down and really ruin your reputation. It's messed up. I think text messages are extremely important. Was it? Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it Chris Brown is the one that got recently accused by somebody of some kind of sexual assault, whether it was through intoxication or otherwise? But he proved his character right very quickly before it became a civil lawsuit, before it became criminal offense, before it became anything, by just showing his text messages and be like, "Here's her being like, hey, are we gonna hang out tonight?" No, and then let me see here. Yeah. So did that? Am I wrong on this? Yeah.
No, you're
I
right.
want to fuck you tonight at midnight. LOL. Where you at, bae? And she went back after this and said that he sexually assaulted her, and he's just not responding to her messages. And everyone's kind of like,
Yeah.
if you're sexually assaulted by somebody, like there's probably a pretty good chance you weren't going to say, "I want to fuck you tonight at midnight." LOL.
Are the
And then-
is the texting? So you see this a lot in DMs too.
Or
Voice
D-
notes.
It-
People will leave a voice note because then it's not written, and then I don't know like how long a voice note lasts.
Either one is. Oh, you mean like preservation ones?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think that's why some people do that too. It's easier than typing out a text, I guess, because you don't have to proofread it, so it's way faster.
I have actually used that a lot. I didn't know that
I use it a lot,
I don't
too.
know that I didn't know that there was a destruction period on it.
I don't know if the app destroys it after a while.
We should figure that out because I use that a lot, and I would like to know.
Do you
if that's-
do you do the voice notes on
iMessage, like if
too?
I'm like if somebody is
You're in
texting me
traffic?
something, if I'm driving, I don't want to like, be like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm looking down here for a solid 30 seconds, and then I'm gonna look up at 4
Right.
seconds. Like I don't want to do that kind of stuff.
No doubt.
So yeah, voice notes, but I would like to know about that.
I know in iPhone you have an option to keep it, but I don't know how long it keeps. And then like in iPhone, if you have a conversation that's more than like 3 weeks old and you don't text with that person often, it just kind of gets stashed in the cloud. So when you're like trying to go through, you know how you'll get the wheel of death? Like,
I did not know that.
yeah, a lot of times it will index photos, attachments, things of that nature that are in your text thread. And unless it's like your mom, who you might text every other day, or your girlfriend,
They
it's
just get
someone
kind
you
of siphoned away.
I think it's a setting. You can choose how.
Oh, I would not. I would
Really?
not like that. I would
at
not
least
like
for
that setting.
at least for how long you can keep text. I don't know about the media messages.
Oh, there is
but-
for how long you can keep. Like I have mine on. I think the setting is called forever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mine's
same.
the same
Because
way.
but in terms of flipping through and finding a photo, it has
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
index.
you're right, you're
That's
right.
a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Well, keep everything as long as you can. If there's an extra $1 a month or something, pay the extra $1. Don't lose evidence.
Yeah.
Don't lose it.
Right.
I mean, keep it around. Some people, my dad included, I think this is an old school thing. As they're going through their iPhone, they're like, "Well, I'm done with that
Yes.
text message. I'm going to go ahead and
Delete.
delete it." Don't do that.
No.
Like, hold on to that stuff. You never know when you're going to need it, when it's going to come back to become important.
Especially if someone's threatening you or they're talking
you might
aggressively
need
to
it.
you.
And there is potentially a way to recover it through going after AT&T through a subpoena court process. But boy, it's a lot easier to just show a detective very quickly. Here is what I was doing that night, because they're gonna, on some of the stuff we're talking about, they're gonna ask you something that happened years ago, or months ago, or even. I don't even know. I know what I was doing this morning, but yesterday morning, I'd have to think about it. And the morning before that, I'd have to look at my calendar. And so keep that stuff. I mean, I can't believe people delete that stuff. That's scary.
Well, the
to me.
technicalities, like you look at the Bill Cosby stuff, because he's free right now.
Mm-hmm.
Are there, and I haven't really kept up with that since he was let out on it, what to me seemed like a legal technicality. Does the DA in any of these states where any of those charges were brought, do they loop back around, or is that going to come down to someone suing him civilly again, winning, and then it going to a grand jury again, and then starting the process over, by which time he'll probably be with the Lord. unless he did everything they're saying, then he might be down.
be with the Lord.
Then he might be down taking the bull by the horns.
So
down in the lake of fire. I don't know.
All right, here's my. I'll try to give a really succinct summary of the Bill Cosby case. There's some cases where I have no, like the other guy we're talking about, I have no idea about. I know about the Bill Cosby case because it was interesting legally to me. So originally he was getting sued by somebody for something, alleged acts, whatever it was, and the deposition I think was sealed. And at some point in his deposition, he admitted to, yeah, we did lewds. And so,
how do you get a depo sealed in a civil case like that? Both sides agree to it?
Probably through negotiation.
Like,
I'm
I
not
will
familiar
come
with,
throw down this depo, but it has to be sealed.
Yeah, I'm happy to do this depo. It stays sealed. We both agree, and I'm willing to waive whatever argument I have on this other issue, or I'm willing to consider a settlement between X and Y, something to that effect. But it was supposed to be sealed. And it could be also because he's a public figure. We don't want this getting out there. To me, the actual testimony that they hung their hat on was just, yeah, we took lewds. And I think back in the day, I don't know this for sure, I wasn't there, but I think they pretty frequently would do that kind of stuff. Now, whether Bill Cosby was handsy, I don't know. Could have been. Probably was, if we're going to be honest. There's a lot of people who came out of the woodwork on that one. But they had that sealed, and it became pivotal evidence later. And so eventually what they did was one side claimed the other side had breached the agreement. The other side claimed the other side had breached the agreement. That became essentially opened up. It's not sealed anymore. And so the prosecutor hung their hat on that piece of evidence and went forward on it and said, yeah, let's go ahead. And it might have actually been somehow arranged with the prosecutor office, like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and seal this deposition if you don't prosecute him criminally and we settle this civilly. Maybe that was a good example. I don't know the reason why it was sealed. But regardless, both sides were pointing fingers at the other side, like, you're the one that caused this to be unsealed. But it became unsealed. It became public. Prosecutor hung their hat on it, and it was a big question about whether it was admissible in the criminal trial. And so they go through the whole criminal trial. He's convicted, goes to prison, goes up on appeal, and the appellate court said, no, that's not what it was. You guys already have settled this. I think they either said it shouldn't have been unsealed or it shouldn't have been used in the trial. And I imagine because it was so pivotal that he's admitting to using lewds or giving out lewds, which is knock people on their ass. I think that was such a big part of their case that they're like, yeah, we really can't keep going after him at this point. I mean, also there's a chance that he's protected by double jeopardy, which says you can't be prosecuted for the same offense twice. But I don't think that would work in that case because it has to be exactly the same offense and it has to be not really a legal argument that is preventing them from going forward. Because if it's just a legal argument on just that amount of evidence and you take that away, they can still go forward. But if that was pivotal to the case, that's a big, big deal in going forward, and now they can't use it, then he's probably protected by double jeopardy. So does that make sense? That was like a long rant. It was kind of complicated, but
it does. It makes sense. It's fascinating to me when people have someone does you wrong, and what they've done wrong to you is not just maybe ripped you off in business. Like they've done something that's illegal, that's immoral, that's unethical, that is criminal.
Mm-hmm.
If someone doesn't pay your legal bill, that's not necessarily something the prosecutor, the DA, is going to pick up on and go on. I'm gonna prosecute this person for theft of services. If you were to file a case against them, saying small claims, they owed you $8,500 and they didn't pay you, went in, get a judgment, file the judgment against any properties, whatever you do to recover fees if you haven't been paid. But if someone rapes you, molests you, tortures you, and you want your day in court, what's the process by which the DA reviews that? Because most civil cases, what's said in court isn't that public record?
So this is really good to hammer out because I think a lot of people don't understand this, and I didn't understand this before law school. I mean, I didn't even know where laws were written or what the hell was going on. So a big distinction is civil versus criminal.
Right.
Civil cases are filed in civil courts, and it's usually where, I mean, it can be a variety of things, but generally what we're talking about in this context is somebody says, you wronged me in some way, and you owe me some kind of compensation to make me whole again, to fix whatever horrible thing you did to me. And then, on top of that, punitive damages or whatever. And then there's also criminal offenses, and your local county DA is going to be the one generally prosecuting those. It could also be a federal jurisdiction, but let's just pretend like it's happened in we're in Dallas County, I think, right now.
Yeah, this is Dallas County.
Like, let's say it's like a borderline hybrid. Like this guy went into a contract to get a roof, or went into a contract to perform some kind of roofing services, but never really actually had the intent to do it. He did it fraudulently. Like he came into town. Oh, yeah, I'll do this for you. Just give me several $1,000s and I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. So you could have potentially a claim against him in civil court, and then you would also be a witness in criminal court. And it's the state that proceeds after or goes after him whenever they're trying to prosecute him on a criminal offense.
If you're the plaintiff, though, and you go to, like, the sheriff and you say, this contractor ripped me off, and they're like, oh, there's not – that's a civil matter?
That's a common thing they say is, this appears to be a civil matter. What they mean by that is, did you demonstrate to me that you've met all the elements of a criminal offense clearly and convincingly to this officer? And that's a legal term. Is they really just need probable cause on every single one of these elements that somebody did something like, let's say, fraud.
What is probable cause?
It's an amount of facts that convinces a police officer, detective, investigator, whoever, that you have committed a crime, and there's certain elements of every single crime. For example, DWI is I was operating a motor vehicle while intoxicated on a public street. And so if you don't have all those four, if you have somebody that's on their ranch property, we're not on a public highway, and they're driving around drunker than shit and flipping off the cop at the same time, woo! They're not on a public highway, the cop is going to be like, it's not, I mean, it's really dumb of them, but it's not a DWI because it's not a public roadway. And so that's an example, like that's what's going on in their heads is, does this trigger every single one of the elements of this criminal offense? Is there enough facts to where I'm hearing them, not whether there's a counter argument, but is there enough basic facts to demonstrate every single one of these elements, probable cause level? Like we're not having to prove beyond a reasonable doubt every single one of these elements, but is there enough to where I have heard facts that sufficiently demonstrate that this person has committed a criminal offense, which is meeting all the elements. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing with civil stuff. It's a much lower burden. It's only the easy way to think about it is criminal stuff is beyond a reasonable doubt. It's the highest standard in law. Civil stuff is where you're going after somebody. You only have to prove more likely than not. Like, think about it like 51%. Like, you tip the scale slightly in your favor. If you prove that somebody damaged you and it caused you some kind of expenses and there's a cause of action meaning kind of like criminal stuff where there's elements of the offense, except they have civil causes of action as well. Like you were negligently operating a motor vehicle and proximately caused damages to me, and I suffered some kind of injury. So it's a little bit different, and it's a lower standard, but it's the same kind of arguments that they're going to be making. But that's why a lot of times people start screaming at a cop, like, why are you not prosecuting him? Why is this guy? Or they'll call the police and say, this guy is doing whatever he's doing. But the cop is sitting there in his head from his training being like, okay, let me figure out if there is a criminal offense that applies, which is in the penal code. You can look it up anytime you want to figure out if you have violated a penal code statute. And you go through, and every single one of those elements, like, have each one of these elements been met by some amount of evidence? And if so, then they start thinking, okay, I can go ahead and maybe get a warrant and arrest this guy. Or if I observed it, maybe I can arrest this guy. But before that, they typically are saying, that's a really horrible thing that happened to you, but it sounds like it's civil in nature. That's what they mean is, maybe you don't quite have a criminal offense from what you've told me. A common thing is the hybrid family law courts. Hybrid standard is kind of in the middle, where somebody takes a child and they, like, run off, but it's, baby daddy runs off and baby mama calls up police like, hey, you just left with my baby. And like, well, do you guys have a family law court order? And like, well, no. I'm like, and that's his dad that took him? Yeah. Okay. Well, that's unfortunately he's allowed to do that because we don't really have a court order that he's violating. That's not a criminal offense. It's not kidnapping. That's his dad. And even though he was never in the kid's life or, like, kind of a shitty person, like, you need to go to family law court to hammer that stuff out. So does that kind of make sense? And that's a bit of a hybrid scenario.
No, I get it. So let's take, like, the most maybe famous instance where someone was taken to criminal court. They were, I'll explain it, you'll know who I'm talking about. They were found not guilty. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. Then the family takes them to civil and wins to bankrupt them, but also to try, don't want this guy living a life of luxury after he sawed somebody's head off with a kitchen knife. Win in civil, but then the guy's pleading poverty and still writing books. And Ron Goldman's dad is still chasing OJ to this day for money.
I absolutely imagine he is. So, yeah, that's a beautiful, perfect example of the difference in the burdens and, like, what amount of proof they have to have. So they went after him in criminal court, came back not guilty for whatever reason we don't know.
Because of Rodney King.
But then we go to civil court and they win. It's a much lower standard of evidence that they have to get, and they probably pretty clearly could have won the civil case. Criminal case, I don't know. There were some issues. Johnny Cochran was a total badass. I love that man. But they go over to civil court, they win, and now it's more of, we have this enormous judgment because it was a wrongful death. The jury believed it. They thought more likely than not you did cause this death, whether you were the one stabbing or somebody else. We don't care. You're the one responsible for it. Now you owe us money whenever you write a book later because we don't want to reward that kind of stuff. And so that's where it becomes judgment enforcement, which is a lot crazier. It's probably exactly what you're talking about, where they're having to chase him down. He's writing a new book. Well, we want to get the proceeds of the book because we don't want you to profit from the murder and then you describing what happened during the murder or why you didn't commit it, whatever happened. But he's getting proceeds from that. And so, yeah, that's something that's really, really difficult. That's judgment or collections enforcement. So entirely different animal. Like, once you get a judgment, doesn't mean somebody can pay. And that's kind of why personal injury attorneys work in a very certain and distinct way versus many other types of attorneys.
The certain and distinct way that personal injuries most often work is to go after insurance companies, because the insurance companies are more likely to pay. They have to pay. They can't hide. They're there for a reason. If they're insuring the responsible party, if it's a trucker or just another Joe Blow citizen that broadsides you at an intersection, then the personal injury attorney knows there's a payday there. There's not going to be any chasing, because the insurance company, once they lose, they have to pony up.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's quite rare for an insurance company to go out of business. That's really what personal injury attorneys are looking for, is where am I going to find some level of insurance to actually be paid? I mean, there are times where they see a high net worth individual, but really that's something that's largely ignored. I mean, most people that are even high net worth are still going to have insurance, and that's kind of a known animal that they're dealing with. We know that we can go after them. We know that if we demonstrate this amount of damages, that we're going to get some pushback, but eventually something that ends up being worth my time to actually get in there and fight with the insurance company about.
Those attorneys are most often working on a contingency basis.
Yeah, so most personal injury attorneys are doing anywhere from 30 to 45%, which is a wide range, but I'd say typically what they want is a third to 40% of whatever the final judgment is, and then also, of course, minus costs and a variety of other things. But that's kind of why you see a lot of advertisements out there that say, hey, I'll handle your case today for nothing down, and if we don't win, you don't pay anything. And really what that means is we're going to try to ramp up your medical bills and then later try to argue them down and charge you. Well, this is some personal injury attorneys, I'm saying. Like, there are some reputable ones out there that are ethical and follow the rules and try to do what's best for their client. That's a big thing, is a lot of personal injury attorneys, I think, are not doing what's best for their client. They're doing what they think is going to be profitable over the long term. How can I maximize this amount of money on whatever kind of car wreck case happened? They'll send, this is, again, some attorneys are like this, but I'm going to describe for you like some things I see. Some of them will say, yeah, I'm going to take 40% of whatever the final amount is. Nothing if we don't get anything. Small car wreck, soft tissue damage, nothing broken, but maybe it's quite clearly the other person's fault. So they figure out that there's insurance involved, probably 30, 50. There's going to be like a minimum amount of money that is available for this if the person who's their client gets injured and the other person's responsible. There's going to be some money there. And so they're going to go after them. They're going to try to maximize the bills. Oh, you need to go to the chiropractor. You need to go to, well, very specifically this chiropractor, very specifically this doctor, and let's go ahead and ramp those bills up. And once they get, let's say, whatever the policy limit is, whether it's $30,000, $50,000, whatever they get, once they've ramped that up to a pretty high level, then they contact the insurance company. Hey, here's all the medical bills. Also, we haven't even started with pain and suffering, which is another thing we're allowed to get to compensate my client. So let's go ahead and talk. We talking 100,000? No? Okay, well, we'll just take policy limits then. And while this is happening, the person that is getting treated sometimes by the same doctor that treats pretty much everybody in there, whether you have a fracture in your hand, a messed up MCL, or broken toe, or facial reconstructive. It's really messed up. It'll be the same doctor because they know that doctor will ramp up his bills and then drop them way, way down at the very end because he knows that it's only going to be, it's only worth like this much. But, you know, to the insurance company, let's go ahead and ramp it up. And it's disgusting and despicable, and it doesn't get people better. It doesn't make people whole, which is, in my view, a personal injury attorney's job, is to make somebody better. and it doesn't really do that in the end. I mean, they're going to get a nice check potentially, minus a whole bunch of a large percentage of the amount, and minus all the dumb, ridiculous expenses that shitty personal injury attorneys take off of somebody's bill. It's messed up. A lot of stuff they do. But they're not even making them better a lot of times if they're sending them to a very specific doctor or doctors that they have some kind of relationship with, that the mutual understanding, which is probably, if I imagine, never spoken out loud or never written down. They're not actually saying it, but they kind of understand that, you know, whenever this is done, you're going to get a lot lower bill.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's despicable. It's horrible. And most personal injury attorneys I know don't do that, but there are some bigger ones that do. And so
those big firms that you might see if you're sitting at home from work with a cold.
Oh, I'm not. I know who you. They don't do that as far as I know. They've got a very efficiently run practice. I'm talking about the firms that typically don't see doing that, that are working on. I mean, it's the same thing with criminal defense. There's some firms out there that just try to rake in as many people as they possibly can, and then treat them horribly, but within their view of like what reasonable standards that are not going to get me immediately violated on the law, and just push them right through the system as fast as we can. Take the first offer. Hey, you don't want jail, do you? Okay, I got you probation. And like I see it happen all the time, because I'll have clients come in and let's say they're in for a DWI second or something like that, or they have another case, whatever, possession of marijuana, and then they get later a DWI. And I'm looking at their past, I'm like, why on earth did you take the maximum probation of 24 months on a possession of marijuana under 2 ounces? And they're like, I don't know, my lawyer told me, like, you don't want jail, do you? And I'm like, and then they told you to take 24 months of probation on this? Are you kidding me? And I just see some recurring names when that happens, and I think there's some recurring names with personal injury as well. And it's kind of scary out there. And so the solution is going to meet your defense attorney or your personal injury attorney in person and seeing how they communicate with you, see how they talk with you, see if they're willing to give you time, see if they seem like they care. And sometimes it can be hard because a lot of attorneys are sociopaths or psychopaths and are good at faking it. But, man, go put your hand in their hand and see, like, you feel like a good person. I don't know. Do you treat me right? And that's a good indication, I think, of, is this person a good person? Are they going to treat me right?
The contingency attorneys, how are they, when they start their firm, how are they paying bills? I mean, if you got to get a whole pipeline of cases and then get a bunch of judgments to start collecting, how are you paying your bills in the meantime? So what I don't think a lot of people understand is the way some firms are set up. They have investors. This is a business. Those investors are floating the practicing attorneys. The big judgments come in. The firm gets paid, but the investors get paid as well. Can you kind of shed a little bit of light on how those firms are put together?
Do you mean like silent partner? So if you're
I'm calling a silent partner an investor. Yes.
Okay. So to be able to share in the fees, any kind of attorney fee, you have to be an attorney, and so it would be somebody that would probably be, I don't know, a named partner, like they're kind of on the back burner. But I think that I wouldn't be as worried about that. I don't know. I mean, I think you can cut both ways. I think it really depends on the firm and the firm culture, like if they're going to do something really shitty to people and not care at all. There are some firms out there that they do care and they try to do what's best. And there's actually meetings and talks where they're like, hey, we've had some complaints. Like, how can we make things better for this person? That's a basic, and I'm kind of realizing as I'm saying this out loud, it's kind of the same with culture of large, like Fortune 500 companies. Like, you kind of see the difference between like Enron with like money, right, or like Apple, where they're like, hey, let's try to make the best possible product we absolutely can. Like, let's really try to kill it. Let's do the best we can. And so sometimes that's to the expense of the consumer, but really they're trying to focus on, like, how can we make the best possible product we can. And so that's a good, I think it applies the same way to law firms. Like, you can have there can be firms with partners out there that are not necessarily silent. I mean, their name would probably have to be on there, but like, let's say a named partner that doesn't really do anything, or kind of laid back, retired. Sometimes that can come with just grinding for years and years, and they've done everything. They've set up the system that works. But then there's some attorneys that are newer, that are trying to expand as fast as they possibly can because they want to be a big name, they want to be a billionaire, they want to be a billion-dollar firm, something like that, that are expanding very quickly. Like, how can we make more money and cut costs, or just get more in our pocket, and largely ambivalent about their client. And the stuff that I've heard and sometimes seen is pretty sad. I think that if it's a firm where they put the client first and they really try to make them better, like, do they have a soul? Right. That's a good starting point. Does this personal injury attorney have a soul? If they do, let's start talking. Let's sit down and see how much time and attention they give me. Do they seem like they have their stuff together? That's probably what I would do. Knowing what I know now, if I got injured and wanted to hire somebody other than myself, I would probably go contact several attorneys, see how fast they responded. Did they try to pressure me? Did they make me feel like I have to sign this right now? Did they get a hold of my contact information in some way that made me think for a second, like, wait, I got injured, and now all of my social media is popping up that, are you injured in an accident? You are? Oh, well, what? Imagine that happenstance. Here's my number.
Yeah.
You know, if you see something going on like that where you get a feeling that they are sort of, I mean, back in the day, it used to be ambulance chasers. They would literally chase ambulances. They would hear one, be like, "Oop, I gotta follow that one," and they'd follow it to the hospital, because if an ambulance is going to the hospital, it suggests at least that there's going to be severe injuries. And before all of our just real nasty ethical rules started preventing this kind of stuff, you should just kind of follow them to the hospital and be like, "Hey, saw that you're missing an arm. Do you know that this is a pretty serious thing that you could get compensated very well for?" And people would be like, "Well, I like money, and yeah, this really sucks really bad, and I'm kind of half drugged up, but I'll sign whatever documents you want." And so that stuff would happen. And so then came the term ambulance chaser. Then came a lot of, probably, I imagine, over-amplified by the insurance companies who don't like personal injury attorneys. Like, we need to stop these sharks from doing this.
I'm sure.
And so it was over-amplified, but it did happen. And put all of our ethical rules to prevent that kind of stuff. And now it's something where they have to skirt around them in some way. Like, how can I figure out who was injured in this general vicinity without, and then show them an advertisement without actually approaching them and soliciting them? Like, let's see if there's been an or let's say anybody who went on Facebook in this hospital area, very narrow margin, let's show a bunch of advertisements to them really hard, put a lot of money in it. Like, that's an example off the top of my head. I don't even know if anybody's ever done that. I imagine if they haven't, they'll start doing it. But that's the kind of thing that you probably should be hesitant to think, this guy's got my best interest, if he's just trying to maximize the amount of horribly injured clients he's got without regard to who they are. I mean, there's some clients that would be very high paying for me, like for criminal defense, for personal injury, and I don't take them because it's just not right for me. It's just not the right case. I don't think I'm the right attorney, but there are some that, get poached by other attorneys, and I'm just like, that's kind of gross doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The fine line that you walk as an attorney and as an entrepreneur, because you're your own small business owner. what's that like where you've got this code of ethics, you've got this oath that you took when you passed the bar, you want to grow your business, you want to be successful, you want to set yourself up to build a family someday maybe. What thoughts are going through your mind when you're deciding like, this case isn't right for me, or man, there's something shady going on here. Maybe I don't believe this prospective client's story, or how are you weighing how are you doing that cost benefit analysis mentally?
Oh, it's tough. So let's start with like my advertising. I think really helps out because I reach out to people that are going to think that whatever I'm doing is funny and they get it. I think that they're going to be somewhat intelligent, or they're just going to be rowdy as hell. Be like, that guy's pretty cool. I like him. And in which case, like, I'm like, I like you too. Let's do this. So that's one thing. I'm not doing something where I'm trying to prey on stupid people intentionally, like some other attorneys are. So already I'm getting a selection of people that I think are probably going to be, generally speaking, better than that. So, and then I advertise to the types of cases. I've done pretty much every kind of criminal case you can think of when I was, especially when I first started out, I would do anything just to get experience. I would sit second chair on everything from, Class C tickets all the way up to capital murder. And I've kind of figured out, narrowed down.
You sit in second chair with like someone who's kind of mentoring you, or
Yes.
you're learning from?
Yeah,
Are you offering that to them? Like, hey, I see that you've been retained on this case. Can I sit second chair with you?
That's usually how it works, especially when you're a young attorney. If you're not doing that, you're not doing the best you possibly can. Like, yeah, you might be a total G at marketing, but if you're not sitting second chair, and actually figuring out how to try a case, what happens when the insurance company or the prosecutor calls you out and says, you know what, I don't believe you. Let's go to trial. You're going to be scared, and they can probably sense that. But if you've been to every type of trial and you're not worried about it and you can go, I think that that's something they can sense. And so I generally prefer and love like DWI cases. Those are my absolute favorite. Class C DUI all the way up to any kind of felony where it's more serious. But I also take assault cases. If somebody's injured in an accident, of course I'm going to talk to them. If I can't help them, I'm going to find them somebody that can. There's certain experts that are really good at 18-wheeler cases. I've sent cases to. There's some where if it's a premises liability, that's going to be a different attorney. I mean, some attorneys you just know that they're a total badass when it comes to that type of case. And so
just because they have so much experience and they can they understand the letter of the law, but they also understand maybe the nuance and have more working knowledge of precedent, things of that nature.
Absolutely, 100%. Because just because you're a criminal defense attorney doesn't mean you're the right criminal defense attorney for every single case. For example, DWI law is very complicated. And people don't think that. Like, well, was he driving drunk or wasn't he? And no, it's extremely complicated because of all the potential civil consequences, administrative consequences, criminal consequences, license suspension, interlock, jail time, fines, administrative, super fines, as we call them, or surcharges back in the day is what they were called. There's so much nasty stuff that happens to you that it's a pretty complicated area, and the law is kind of changing. It's changed the last few legislative sessions to become a little bit different and more complicated. This morning, there was a question on a DWI case that I didn't even know, and all the defense attorneys in the room didn't know, and the prosecutors didn't know, and the judge didn't even know.
Wow.
And we all had to sit there and go through our law books and make our best guess, and the judge ended up ruling in my favor. But we just had to pull up the literal penal code to figure out or transportation code in that case, figure out what was going on with this.
Was there an air of collaboration there where you and opposing counsel and the judge are all trying to figure out how to get to the bottom of it?
I think the prosecutor was largely ambivalent about the whole situation. They just wanted the plea to this, and I was happy with it because the case is getting dismissed, and the judge is happy with it because it's a case off the docket. But what we're concerned about is like whether there was going to be a real nasty additional license suspension after this under these very specific facts. And I said there wasn't. The judge was concerned that I think there's a minimum of 1 year suspension. And I kind of had to, we both figured out that it's a minimum suspension of whatever he wants, which was something he had already served. And so he ended up walking away without a license suspension. But that's an example of something that is, there's so much complicated stuff within both the penal code, the administrative code, the transportation code, of like stuff that can happen to you whenever you get arrested for something like that. And so a good example of like why you want to find somebody that's really good at whatever happened to you is if you went and just Googled criminal defense attorney, there'd be other people pop up that are not experts in that. And same thing with getting injured in an accident. If you type in, injury attorney or personal injury attorney, you're going to have a lot of people pop up that might not be an expert in your area. Sure, they might want to take your case because it might be profitable to them, but they might not be the best attorney for you under those circumstances. And that's where, I mean, knowing people can certainly help, which I have an advantage. I went to law school and know attorneys, and if you don't, go talk to them. That's what I'd say. Is go talk to your local attorney and see if they're a good person.
Is that the best way? Because you're running a family. Say you're a new parent. You've got a 2-year-old kid. You're trying to figure everything out, right? You got to make sure you got your accountant. You got to make sure you got a realtor. You got to make sure you're covered every which way, right? You kind of have to build your own team because when you run a family, it's a business.
That's a good way to think about it.
The best way then to make sure you've got your all of your legal issues covered, you got all of your T's crossed and your I's dotted, to find like a general business attorney or a family, not necessarily specifically family law, but an attorney who is established, has experience, because then they can refer you depending on...
Absolutely. So
that's kind of the easy button, don't you think? Like find somebody you can trust. Is that usually what happens, right? Your dad's like, well, this has been our family attorney for so long, and then when little Johnny got a DUI or an MIP or whatever, he referred him over here, and then he referred me over here for this real estate deal. Is that the best way to do it?
So I think you're dead on. Exactly everything you said, I agree with. That if you, the hard thing is finding an attorney that's making a friend that's also happens to be an attorney. Because if they are a true friend, they will know if they can take your case. They know if they're going to be the best for you. And they will know other lawyers who they've heard about or know personally that can handle that exact situation and are going to be the best. And sometimes if I refer a lot of people out when I get a call and they'll tell me, oh, you're a friend of a friend and I'm all the way down in Burnett County or some other random county that I'm not going to practice in. And so I just do a search and I usually know somebody. Just if going through all the lawyers, I'm like, oh, I know that guy. I've seen him at conferences. I know he's damn good. He spoke at conferences, whatever. He's good. So I'd say the simple answer is absolutely. If you get somebody who's a friend and they also happen to be an attorney, they are probably going to refer you out to somebody else. There are times I've seen where it's kind of like a family friend that's like, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And then I see them in court and they're over their head. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It hurts to see that because they'll just ask questions when they're talking with the prosecutor, like, oh, okay, what's the offer on the case? And they're like, max probation. And they're like, oh, good. So no jail time. And they're like, no. And they're like, okay. And they'll go take that to them. And you can just kind of tell. I mean,
just have no point. They have no context.
You can just tell that somebody is not a criminal defense attorney.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell more subtle cues of somebody who might not know very much what they're doing on a DWI case, but you can blatantly tell when somebody doesn't do criminal defense and they're sitting there talking to a prosecutor, and I'm just sitting there like, oh, I have the urge where I almost want to help. And sometimes I will step in. If I really can tell that they're doing what they're doing, I'm like, come talk to me real quick.
Like if you're sitting in there waiting,
I'll give them like
for
a
your
5
case
minute.
to come up?
I'll give them a 5 minute, and sometimes I don't know. I've got a face that people sometimes want to punch or also want to talk to, and they're like, I have a lot of people that just come up to me like, I don't really know what's going on. I'm like, come here. We're
That's
gonna
awesome
talk about
of
this.
you.
And I'll walk them through the whole thing. I'm like, this is a lot of stuff. Okay, so here's this, and I'll explain to them I'll look at their case. I'll ask them a few questions. I'll get the basics of it, and I'll tell them, well, this is what I think would be a good deal. This is what I would think would be a bad deal. This is something you can push for. This is something you can maybe ask your client to go do some classes to mitigate. Maybe they're going to dismiss it. Maybe they're going to drop it down.
Why are you so passionate about citizens' civil rights? Like, what is it? Was it maybe because when you were getting brought up, you were getting in trouble for bullshit and getting sent to reform school, and you're like, the fuck?
It's very funny you'd say that because I was wrongfully arrested for a DWI.
Okay.
And so
It's like this bully thing where you're like, not today. You're not bullying them or anyone around me.
Not going to let that happen. And I don't even think I think a lot of times, yes, sometimes, of course, the prosecutor would be a bully, but that's not what's happening. It's lack of knowledge, and it's concerning to me that something bad is going to happen to this guy that, I don't know, family friend lawyer or like somebody that's stepping in. If they're a good family friend, they're going to send you to somebody that's right. But yeah, I mean, I was wrongfully arrested for DWI. It's one of the worst experiences of my entire life.
Wow.
You want me to talk about that?
Yeah, what happened?
Did I talk about that last time?
No, not last time. This would maybe lead us into what you did last week, too. Because, I mean, you know, when I started this podcast, it was about meeting DIY type people, fearless people, but also people with, and I just kind of realized that it was more even deeper than that. It was about like this exchange of energy with other people who are living their life with passion. So you have like it's very palpable. Like your clip about you know, when the feds come after you. I think that on TikTok got more comments than any other clip I've got up there. Just people no, the Fed's coming after you. You just got to fold your tent, take what they give, and and so the passion that you have for making sure that everybody gets a fair shake I think is awesome. I think that attorneys get a really bad rap. I wanted to be an attorney growing up for a long time, and then decided against it just because I couldn't imagine being inside all day. Like that was my kind of deciding factor.
Oh yeah. I can't be that way either.
Yeah, I know you're always moving around.
That's why I got to do that.
What? So was this in college?
So this was college. I think I was 18, 19 years old. College station cops, real nasty cops down there.
Yep.
And
true story.
Very aggressive. There was a lot of people at this bar. I was in a fraternity, and the people in this, they were going to be operating this vehicle, one person driving and other people with him. I won't say any names. They were wasted, like shit house, fall down drunk, break your glass, like, let's stumble out to the car and get out of here. I had, I think, half to 3/4, like not even a full pint-sized Coors Light. And I was like, dude, y'all are not driving anywhere. Like, I will drive y'all. I don't know how to drive your big-ass, ridiculous truck, but I'll figure it out. Like, y'all are not driving home. And so I'm driving back. We get pulled over for some, I imagine, technical traffic violation. I don't even know if he told me the reason. And we stop, and the cop comes up, and I remember even at age 18, 19 years old, he's just a few years older than me, and he's puffing at his chest. He comes up there, like, you know what, I pulled you over? Okay, well, I'm immediately smelling a lot of alcohol in this vehicle. I'm like, yeah, I have a lot of drunk people in here. We're just trying to get, I don't even know why I said that. I just said, like, we're just trying to get home. Yeah. Like, I'm not drunk. Like, I'm taking them back. I'm like, okay, well, I smell a lot of alcohol from the car, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you to step out of the vehicle. And ask me to step out, and I'm like, I'm going to pass. Like, I'm not drunk. Like, I'm going to do fine on this. And so I started doing the test, and it starts out, and looking back on it as a defense attorney for mostly DWI cases is what I love the most. I'm just like, I just hate it even more hearing about this kid. And I didn't know what was happening back then. I was just like, I'll just show him that I'm sober, and everything will be fine.
Right. I got nothing to be worried about.
Yeah, I have nothing to be worried. Really, it's how it was. And he takes me back there, and he's like, okay, first I'm going to go ahead and blah, 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 blah. Eye test. And back then, that's how it felt to me. I know what he's going to say now, but back then, that's kind of how it felt to me. Just he said a bunch of stuff and held up a pen. And so I started following it. And back then, this is before I got LASIK, I wore contacts, and I was legally blind. and I found that out later too. That was crazy.
Wow.
But one of my contacts falls out and lands on the ground.
Oh, damn.
And so I'm like, can you hang on a second? Okay. And I pick up my contact, and it's covered in little pebbles, like, all over it. And I was like, I don't know what to do, but can we just stop this for a second? And he's like, I'm going to need you to go ahead and put that eye and continue the test.
What the fuck?
And I was like, I cannot put this in my eye. This has, like, little pebbles. I will die. Like, I might go blind if I do that. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to put your hands behind your back. I'm going to take that as a refusal of my test, and you're under arrest for DWI. Put me in handcuffs and threw me in the back of the cop car. And I remember just, like, sitting there in the back of the cop car in handcuffs, just being like, what the? And I just started crying. I was like, how did this even happen?
Yeah.
How did I even get here? Like, this is crazy. I'm not drunk. And so go through the whole process. I have to get out and call my dad. And I remember just, oh, man, that sucked.
I bet.
Yeah.
Wow.
He gave me the
this still bothers you a lot.
Oh, yeah. He gave me, like, the disappointed speech.
Oh, fuck, dude. Those are the worst, man.
And I've done a lot of dumb shit, but I didn't do that. I've done a lot of dumb shit. I'm freely admit to it, but that one still sucks. And
man,
thankfully,
I'm sorry that happened, man.
that's rough. But
it obviously happened for a reason, though. Isn't that fucked up about life?
it's pretty crazy, actually.
It's
I mean,
weird.
I imagine that's why I kind of focus on
Sure.
what I do. Cause
I had no idea about this story.
You didn't know about that?
No.
Oh yeah, that's
No.
rough. That's a life-changing experience getting arrested for DWI.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to take out a student loan. My lawyer was Craig Graves. I love you if you see this. I don't know. He's still a practicing attorney. I love that man.
What's up, Craig?
What's up, Craig? He got my case dismissed, got it expunged, but it wasn't something where they're like, oh, whoops. We're so tremendously sorry this happened. They didn't write me an apology letter. They didn't do anything. I still had to hire a lawyer. Still had to go fight this thing, and they treat you exactly like everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's just horrible. And so you can get treated so badly just for getting arrested for something, even if you're innocent. And that's kind of what I try to do for my clients, is picture myself in their shoes.
Sure.
Like, what would I want my lawyer to be doing?
Wow.
You know? So
that's a hell of a testimony. I mean, not every attorney can say that they've actually been in the shoes of their client or their prospective clients.
And I tell most of my clients that too.
Do you?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm like, I've been in your shoes. I know it sucks.
So I saw you post on Facebook. It was like early last week. No, it was the weekend, 2 weekends ago, right? You're like about to get fed alcohol.
Probably last week, the standardized field sobriety test.
Yeah. So what you had some drinks, and then they had you go through it, and they filmed it.
So one of my friends is a cop, very good friends, and he's talked about this before. And he said, "Hey, you want to come do this?" I said, I was hesitant because I don't really drink that much anymore, but he wanted me to go. I was like, I want to understand a new perspective. I've never done this before. I like knowing every single thing about this. And so I go there, and it's pretty funny. You had to fill out a whole bunch of forms saying you're not going to sue anybody. And then they start handing you out ration booze, and you start drinking it. And it immediately becomes a party in there, which is hilarious. Like, you don't get to realize, like, and it's still well lit, but everyone's drunk. And so everyone's, like, raising their voices and, like, doing silly things and all this kind of stuff. And so, and they're testing you along the way because they don't want you to get crazy over the limit. They want you to be, like, pretty well over the limit, but then some people to be a little bit lower the limit.
What's the goal of this exercise?
It's putting officers through, like, they've read about the test, they've studied it. Now the officer,
live fire.
Now the trainees are going to test a variety of people and estimate whether they think they're over the limit, under the limit, or like right at the limit, borderline.
Was everyone that was at the exercise of sound body, or did you have some people in there who may have had some major disabilities or minor disabilities?
One question they would ask you is, do you have anything? Are you taking any medication? Are you do you have any injuries that would prevent you? So they basically would disqualify anybody from that. And so there wasn't anybody in there that I thought was over 65, which is something that they're supposed to take into consideration. There wasn't anybody that had any obvious handicaps or like a serious, because I think that they probably wouldn't sign up for that. I think because this is like the initial routine training, they're probably trying to get people that are able-bodied and should be able to pass if everything is completely normal. So that's an interesting point you're making, actually, is that they're not really getting somebody who's over 65 or over 50 pounds or 50 pounds overweight
or injured
and that's a good point that I hadn't even considered. And boy, it's really funny what happened. Like I was like, oh, I want to drink White Claw, and he's like, it's liquor only. I'm like, come on, man, like liquor makes me so hungover now. I can't do anything the next day, and I'm a mess.
When you hit 30, drinking is just brand new ball game, bro.
Some people can still handle the drinking. Some of my friends,
I don't see how.
And I'm like, what? How can you go out and drink and then be a normal human being the next day?
I don't understand how. I mean, being hungover has to be one of the worst.
It's really bad
sensations of adult life.
And so,
how much are they forcing you to or having you drink?
I probably had about like 5 or 6 White Claws, and then I drank them fast too. And I was probably
the grapefruit flavor.
That's the worst flavor of all.
Black cherry?
No, man.
Lemon?
I'm a tangerine man.
Tangerine?
I'm a tangerine man.
What's going on in here?
I know, and boy, did I get ridiculed mercilessly because
for drinking tangerine White Claw.
Well, any White Claw, they were like, you
don't like the ruby red grapefruit?
No, that is the.
They got a cranberry. Have you ever had? Mango's very bland. It's good.
Mango's good.
Have you ever had White Claw Surge?
Is that
the ones? It has more.
Well, we tried that.
It has 8%. That shit is brutal, bro.
Yeah, you don't.
And that is on you. Remember
and,
Four Loko?
Oh man,
remember that stuff because it had caffeine.
Not only do I remember Four Loko, but my buddy and I, when we heard that Four Loko was going away, we went to every convenience store in Fort Worth
of course you did.
And surrounding areas because we love Four Loko so much.
And
we
bought
them out, and we had cases and cases like case like this, cases and cases like stuff, and there's still allegedly, supposedly,
somewhere
some of this still. Which has got to be radioactive at this point because that stuff was nightmarish.
It was
you would drink
really
it
bad.
And you'd be like, I just have so much energy to smash things right now.
But I'm about to pass out.
And you pass out, wake back up. And then,
so you're just drilling White Claw after White Claw, and then they are like, okay,
so
heel to toe,
motherfucker. I would have loved if that's all it was. And so I blew into the thing, and I was over the limit. I was 0.10, and I'm gonna kill it on this test because I know what they're looking for. So I'm not going to get any clues of like, not like raising my arm sideways or starting too soon. Like ones that are like little gimmies that they try to like mess with people on. Like
you talked about those last time.
Even if you look good, they're still going to get you on like little gimme clues, which is why you should probably never do them after drinking ever. But, we're supposed to. And he looked at me and he was like, nah, you're too sober. Here. And he poured like a red Solo cup full of Rumple about here.
Oh, get out of here with that.
And gave me, and I remember it was like three glugs of like,
may as well be NyQuil, bro.
And then handed me another one.
Oh, I'm off it.
And
no way.
That one was probably about two glugs, maybe like 2 real big glugs. It wasn't 3. And right after that, I was just like, oh my God, and then just shuffled me in. And I was at that point blackout. I mean, pretty quick.
Did you breathalyze again?
I think after everything was done, I was like 0.14 maybe.
So almost twice.
Yeah, almost twice. I imagine we did it for a while. I imagine I was double the legal limit there. I'm amazed that I got a new respect for the test because I always thought like, oh, it doesn't matter how drunk I get. I know they're little tricks, but even if you are drinking anything, do not do the test. You're gonna do horrible. Just tell them no. I'll go for a ride. No, I'm not gonna do any of this stuff. It's just gonna look bad. I looked bad on video. That was embarrassing. I still posted it, but
I'm glad you did.
I like missed a step, and I was like, just kind of shuffled my foot back over.
Where is it?
It's on Facebook. Bryan Wilson. They got the caution vest on you there. Look at how red your face is, too.
Was each person like at a different?
Yeah, there was a bunch of people there, and this is a bunch of future police officers, and they're
Is
all
that like a hotel conference room or something?
No, but was everyone at a different?
Everyone was at a
level
different
of
officer. So
intoxication.
there were some people that were under. There were some people that were kind of right at the. I think generally they wanted them to be a little bit under or a little bit over. And boy, did he make sure I was over.
Did they send in any controls? Any people with no substances in them at all?
I don't remember if there was anybody with no substances, because I think that no, that's another good point you're making, is like, hey, let's see how bad somebody is going to do on these tests.
Yeah, can you even do
sober.
it in the first? Like, I have however many concussions I have balance issues.
No, you're going to, if the officer wants you to fail, if he smells alcohol, it's nighttime and you're doing the test and it's Texas, and officers are going to disagree with this, they're going to raise hell about this. But I think if they smell alcohol and it's nighttime on a Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe even Sunday night after a football game, you're probably going to jail. Whether you refuse the test, whether you attempt to do them, unless you're, and I used to say, unless you're a gymnast or active duty military, and I stopped saying gymnast because I had a gymnast get arrested and turned out to be a 0.00, for God's sake. I know.
What about a CrossFitter?
CrossFitter, yeah, they're going to be better, but really the test has a lot more to do not with balance.
Right.
It's how well are you going to do under extreme pressure with me giving you a lot of instructions all at once. Can you balance all of that and still balance your body and legs and arms and follow instructions? And it's not a small amount of instructions. It's 14 different instructions they're giving you on the walk and turn, for example. And
while they're running code, there's lights going, it's dark, probably. You're stressed to the fucking max,
heart
right?
racing, and it's just like walking a balance beam from building to building.
Yeah.
It's like, can you do that? Maybe. I don't know. And if they want to, they can point out something that you failed. And if you fail one of them, but you pass flawlessly the two others, seems like majority would rule, right? No, they can still take you. And so why create more evidence against yourself?
So unscientific.
It's crazy. It's the best they can do, but it's bad. It's crazy. It's kind of sad, honestly, how hard they prosecute these DWIs instead of what they used to do. Like from, I wasn't a criminal defense attorney in the 90s, but from what I've heard from old school attorneys is they used to just be like, yeah, you're a borderline case. Park your car, call a cab, or walk home, or go straight home, or
I picked up friends before, man.
Yeah, and they'll just,
and I'm only 43, so it's not like this was the 60s.
Yeah, and it's just like, you're borderline. I don't want to ruin your life with a DWI arrest, or not ruin your life, but really impair it. I mean, cause a lot of problems.
No doubt.
Both financially, time commitments, everything else, work. Suspending your license, your family and household is going to be pretty upset, or as my dad said, disappointed in me.
Man, that's the worst.
Yeah,
that's the worst.
That's a good
thing.
example right there. Like,
I don't know if I'll ever say that to one of my kids when I have kids. Maybe I will.
It still affects
goddamn,
me.
that hits way different than the angry.
Yeah. Angry you can deal with. You're just like, my bad. I didn't
it's
know.
Your dad.
Or you laugh at it, but yeah, at this point,
dude,
this
still fucks you up, man.
Yeah, it does.
Damn, bro.
Yeah.
Maybe you should do so. You go to Colorado. It's now legal and decriminalized. You could do a little magic mushroom to help you get past that trauma. You should try it.
I've my sister. I don't know if I should talk about this publicly.
On to the next.
To the next thing.
So this whole no bail experiment that's going on as a criminal attorney.
I don't even know what that could possibly mean.
Well, so there are new laws where you get arrested if it's a certain law, it falls into a certain classification. You don't even qualify to be considered for bail. You're just in there till trial, right, Sohill?
So I think it's Chicago, or there's a couple cities doing this.
L.A., I reckon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, but all of these cases, all of these cities, the judge has the authority based on their discretion to set bail. But it's maybe I should pull it up. Hold on.
I don't know how that would comply with.
First off,
the
how do you
Eighth
feel
Amendment.
about bail?
Well, I mean, it almost has to happen. There's a constitutional amendment that requires it. Now, you can't hold people in custody. Usually, courts look at a variety of factors. Like, are they going to be?
I think you're maybe misinterpreting what it is. It's they let you out. You're not held without bail. You don't get held at all.
They
Like,
arrest
you mean like
they
you-
say
Yes.
it's not as bad
Oh,
as
I get what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
and then they
like
just
in the sense that bail, the reasoning, right? Bail is, I think a lot of us can agree, like a pretty classist or
Yeah,
someone.
no
it-
doubt
it
about
is.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
no
okay.
doubt.
I thought you were saying there's a new thing out there where they're like holding
Hold you
people
with- No.
like, and I was like, that
That's
doesn't
crazy.
comply with the Eighth Amendment, which I think is the Eighth Amendment. But okay, so you're saying like on decriminalizing marijuana, for example, was
Right.
like an example. So like a Class B misdemeanor that's normally a jailable offense. Like Class C is something where speeding ticket, for example, running a red light, running a stop sign.
or maybe a severe speeding ticket, like you're 25 over or something like that, because they could
Yeah.
take you to jail for that.
So check this out. This is something not a lot of people know. There are only 3 offenses that on anywhere in the penal code or anywhere else that an officer in Texas can not take you to jail. So speeding, what you're talking about is reckless driving. If we're saying that this guy is, and there's no set number like 25 over or double the limit or anything like that. If he thinks your driving was reckless, which everybody kind of knows what a reckless driver is. If you've been on a highway and had somebody just like whip past you, and
Yeah,
like going
change
in
your
and out,
lanes,
like
yeah.
that's a reckless driver
Okay.
right there. You're like, geez, that guy's about to wreck. Like he's really endangering a lot of people. So they can take you to jail for that, of course. But there are 3 offenses and 3 offenses alone that you cannot go to jail for as long as you sign the ticket. And it's speeding, it's texting while driving, assuming you sign the ticket, and quite oddly, open container is not a jailable offense.
Weird.
Now, DWI with an open container, of course they can. But those 3, speeding, texting while driving, and open container, the officer cannot take you to jail on those offenses alone. Now, where this gets weird is everybody else is thinking like, what about running a stop sign? Or what about like not signaling
Yeah.
100 feet before a turn? Yeah, they can take you to jail for those if they want to.
Wow.
And usually what they do is they take you to jail on those when they are like, hey, you mind if I search your car? And you're like, no, I'm not letting you search my car. And they're like, oh, well, I did see you not signal 100 feet before that turn, so go ahead and put your hands behind your back,
Gonna
big guy.
punch your ticket.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and take you in, and they'll take you in for that.
Wow.
And so, but that's what they can do with Class Cs, and typically with history, they've always done is either, for the most part, the Class Cs that they arrest on are like public intoxication, DUI a lot of the time because of practical reasons, like this guy's a drunk idiot and doesn't need to be let loose until he sobers up. Or DUI, like this person, which DUI is something different than DWI. A lot of people don't know this, and it's because it's classified different things all across states in America. But DWI is driving while intoxicated. You can get that at any age. DUI is only for under 21, and it's any detectable amount of alcohol. But they probably don't want this person that has some alcohol to be released. And so practically speaking, they usually take somebody who's under 21 that's not wasted, but they're borderline, and they have any detectable amount of alcohol. Well, they can take you to jail. They probably will. Possession of paraphernalia sometimes because they're thinking, oh, I bet this guy has some stuff on him. But the other ones, if they take you to jail, it's because they don't like you or they want to search through your things and you said no, and that's where you get into the crazy arrest they do. So that's kind of the basics of Class C arrests. Anything Class B misdemeanor, which is one step up and above, Class A misdemeanor or state jail felony or higher and higher and higher, all the way up to capital murder, they have always historically taken people to jail. But what they're doing now with, like, for example, decriminalization of marijuana is they are saying, you know what, we know this is a Class B misdemeanor and we've always taken this guy to jail, but maybe we just, like, write him a thing that says, hey, appear in court. and we don't have to take him to jail. Like, do we really need to take him to jail? Like, he's going to show up for court. Like, that's the whole point of taking him in and getting all of his statement. We have to, of course, verify his identity. But if we're pretty certain this is the guy that's showing me his license, doesn't really have a whole lot of history, lives locally, he's probably going to show up to court. There's not really a sense in taking him to jail, booking him in, making him bond out, and then eventually sending him a court date months and months later down the road. Maybe we just like tell him about his court date when we decide he needs one. Like we go test, because nowadays they change the laws on THC or anything with THC where they have to prove that it's over 0.3% THC before it's actually considered marijuana instead of just hemp. And so
like by weight, right?
Any amount of it. So 0.3% is. Give me just 1 second.
Is the percentage, the content of the substance the same way they test or classify alcohol too? You have 0.3% of THC.
Yeah. What about kombucha?
You're looking at an alcoholic drink. Maybe it's a beer and it's 5.5 or it's 6% alcohol by volume. Is that how they're measuring
by
off?
weight?
By weight.
I'm with alcohol percentages. I know what they're testing. Well, they're testing your blood or your breath,
right?
And breath is 210 milliliters, and then your blood is whatever the 1 cc, like what percentage it is, and they break it down in your blood alcohol concentration into whatever that is of that amount of blood and or breath. With marijuana, it's the same thing with weight. They're trying to figure out like what is the percentage concentration of THC in this substance. And so if they take whatever sample they have and they run it through gas chromatography and they figure out, okay, this is, 10% THC, that's a pretty damn high number. That's probably going to be marijuana, or 10, 30%, whatever it is, or dabs where it's like outrageously high.
Yeah.
But if it's under 0.3% THC, which is like the Delta stuff, or which it may not be. I mean, we have to hope that the stuff you bought at whatever head shop it is not actually, oops, it's slightly over 0.3% THC, and the thing I thought was legal is actually a felony. That's a crazy thing that a lot of people don't know is if I take a misdemeanor amount of marijuana, like a handful of marijuana, and I bake some brownies with it, I just created an entire pan full of cocaine under the law. Like possession of that brick of brownies is now a brick of cocaine under the law.
Wow.
Because I combined that amount of THC and put it into another substance that has THC, they're going to consider it a controlled substance. And so it's the same thing. A lot of people are very surprised about gummies. They're like, dude, I had one gummy. What the hell is going on? Why did I get a felony? I'm like, any amount of THC in something other than plant material is going to be, bare minimum, a felony. And we have to figure out how high of a felony by what the weight is. And so that's a crazy thing that people don't know is like if you have a gummy or a little THC pen.
Or the tinctures.
I don't know.
They put it's in like a liquid. It's in liquid form.
Yeah. Anything. Like the little shot or whatever. Like
yeah, it
up.
comes in a bottle. You mix it in with Sprite or just drink it. It processes through your stomach instead of through your lungs.
I like how
if
they
you
used
smoked
to.
it.
I like that you said Sprite because that used to be the thing. Like 3 6 Mafia back in the
Yeah,
day.
lean,
like
right?
Yeah,
they're
mixing
mixing
it's always with Sprite.
codeine with. Yeah.
Also, why I like Houston, Jess.
Yeah, anything. Oh yeah, anything.
My guy.
Anything.
Hey,
Houston.
he says he would rather live in Houston than Dallas. He just divulged this to me as you were driving here.
Oh man,
There's no fucking way.
I almost would agree with you,
Bro,
And
God damn, what the hell's going on
Here's
here?
why. Here's why.
No, that's giving me a tingle, and I don't like it. It's so
Here's
ridiculous.
Why, I've only been to Houston a couple of times, but there's just so many different parts of Houston that you could almost live in a part that's like Fort Worth or like the outskirts of Dallas.
Well, yeah.
And the thing about Dallas is I don't know, there's something, maybe it's because I was raised in Fort Worth.
It's real corporate, bro. Dallas is real. You see all these financial companies moving here from Chicago, New York.
Do you think your average, mid-30s male, if you picked him out of Dallas versus Fort Worth, that they're going to be more dishonest if they're coming out of Dallas.
Wow.
What do you think?
We got the Tarrant and Dallas County showdown here.
What do you think?
There are more douchebags in Dallas County than there are in Tarrant County. I'll say that. There's no doubt about it.
I would also agree with you that there are more dumb hicks in Tarrant County probably than
The real question is, which county has a larger volume of hot women? That's the question.
Yes, I think you're going to go over to Dallas County.
I think
to
so,
see
bro.
that.
I think that's
Which one's going to have more high quality women that aren't just after your bank account and ruining your life?
I guess it just comes down to what do you deem as high quality?
That's exactly right. You know what the solution here is? Live on the border. Live in Arlington.
Yes.
Go have your bit of good conservative fun over in Fort Worth. Or your wild nights with no regard.
Arlington is wild, bro. Arlington Grand Prairie area.
A lot of my cases come out of Arlington, specifically the dumb shit people do
There's
at
some
the ballpark and
Yes.
surrounding areas. Just like you can't do that, and it's like people think there's not laws because it kind of feels like it's
Vegas.
a private area.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
They do. If it happens at AT&T Stadium, it stays.
It didn't really happen.
You're like,
No.
you can't be having sex in a bathroom. No, you cannot be snorting a rail off of a pickup.
Don't be trying to grab that cop's
tailgate.
gun. That was literally a
What?
I got it dismissed, but they accused him of trying to grab a cop's gun. He didn't. He was just getting his ass kicked by the cops because he didn't understand if you're from the north, you get to sort of call cops out on their bullshit and nothing happens. But if you're in Texas, very specifically, and probably a lot of other states in the South, there's a bit of an authority complex that, if you try to call a cop out about some stupid bullshit, you might actually get put in handcuffs right then.
Just a bit, huh?
And you probably just need to keep your mouth shut and keep on moving and don't start raising hell with the cops. And because they can probably tell that you are drunk and are probably going to try to arrest you for public intoxication, which turns into resisting, which turns into, did he try to grab my gun? We don't know. But anyway, it ended up working out very much in our favor and getting it dismissed. But it didn't mean that we didn't have to go to court about it.
Yeah. No.
It didn't mean that it didn't change his life in a real bad way, and he didn't understand what was even happening. How could the officers even do this? And it's man, it's really weird. I maybe am in kind of a world where I just get used to some stuff happening that probably shouldn't happen. But I don't know, it's really funny. Did I tell you all last time about there's Cops, but then there's another show that's just like the
Canadian one?
Canadian Cops.
Yeah.
What's that? Under Arrest. Y'all need to watch that if y'all hadn't seen that.
There's something I got to text you too, and we'll talk about this on the next podcast. But this is it's a pretty crazy documentary. It's mostly about cyber crimes.
Interesting.
And the way, so this guy learns how to commit high-level income tax fraud. So they got him on Fed charges, mail fraud, all this stuff. They're trying to find this guy.
Yeah.
They can't find him. He's really smart, real smart kid. They finally find him, and I've been racking my brain for what this device was called. But what it is, and it's not necessarily legal. It is a device. They go set up in a van, and they intercept every cell signal that's coming through. They become a de facto cell tower.
Interesting.
With this surveillance equipment. You got to watch. It's on Netflix.
It would not surprise me if that technology or something like it exists. There's what
does.
What happens is they push the limits of the Fourth Amendment and whatever applicable similar state laws. They push the limits until they get pushed back from the courts, from usually the Supreme Court.
So this guy's writing his own
motions
by hand from prison because he has no time, no bail. He's sitting there waiting for trial.
What's it called, Jess?
It's Ron Howard produced it. It's pretty new. It's on Netflix. Ron Howard, Netflix. It's Web of Make Believe. It's one of the episodes in that. I think it's the fourth one. I'll text it to you, Brian.
I'll
later.
check it out.
It's amazing.
I'll watch that.
The device is called like a jackrabbit or man, goddamn, I can't remember. Anyways, He goes through. He compels discovery and is just getting boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff back from the feds.
Yeah.
And he goes through all of it himself until he comes across this one line. It's mentioned one time that they use this device, finds it, let him out. They violated his civil rights because they were not only surveilling his line, but every other line in this apartment complex and the surrounding. And you can't be. What the fuck?
Is that it, Jess?
No, bro,
Yeah,
that's not it. I mean, those work great,
One on the right.
but no.
Well, let me tell you something. That's a good way to ruin yourself. I'll just go ahead and say that. If you're female, I'm just gonna be real. I've had a It's
Just,
not the
in all the ways.
It's the this that's the problem.
It's all the yes. Yeah.
I'm
And
not showing it, but it's Jackrabbit. People know.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I recognize the rabbit.
I
For
don't know
sure.
about
We're
you.
talking sex toys, folks. I don't know if you picked up on that or not, but yeah, if you don't have
We're talking
experience
sex
with them,
toys? I didn't even.
yeah, give it a shot. I mean, whatever floats
Intercept
your
some
boat.
cell signals.
Yeah, seriously. But that shit's good. Last thing, so attorneys kind of have to live maybe by a little bit of a higher standard or code of ethics than other people because you know the law, right?
We absolutely have to. Because
Can you
we can't-
paraphrase the oath you have to take when you pass the bar and you become a practicing attorney in the state of Texas?
I don't even remember what it is.
Can you just like summarize like what it says? Like, I'm going to uphold the law. I respect the law. The law means things to me.
Maybe if we pull it up, I'll tell you like what it meant to me.
What is it
It's a
called?
real long one. Probably Texas bar oath.
We can read it in a second. So here's my question. I'm going to give you a real life scenario that I'm familiar with. Oh, is that it?
Yeah, this is it. So it's kind of.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, that I will honestly
demean myself in practice of law, that I will discharge my duties, to my clients, to the best of my ability, that I will conduct myself with integrity and civility in dealing and communicating with the court and all parties. So help me God. And then your signature. And so, yeah, I mean, that pretty much summarizes exactly. Once I gave that oath, I didn't know if I was ever going to become an attorney because of that, and whether the law schools were going to hold that stuff against me. I had no idea.
Even though it was expunged, but it was going on for your freshman, sophomore, junior years?
Yeah, it was still going on. Like, I still had to write that down. Like, for example, Baylor says, tell us about everything that has happened to you, even if it has been expunged.
Yep.
Tell us about every civil action that you've ever been a part of.
Man,
And
I've got a buddy who's in the insurance claim business as a public adjuster, for which you have to be licensed by the state of Texas. You have to pass you got to pass a test, all that kind of stuff. He wants to be a claim attorney. He had a crazy ex-wife. He's got a few of them. He's kind of a wild man.
Yeah.
And there were some domestic charges. He was not. He didn't do anything wrong, and he had to go explain.
Yeah.
I was a character witness for him. I got a call. I was like, no, this
Was it in
dude's
family
solid.
court, or was it in criminal court, or maybe both?
I don't know, but he had to explain everything to everyone.
Oh, you're saying he had to?
He was trying to get into law school, and they're like, okay, tell us everything you've done wrong.
You have to explain every single thing that has pretty much ever happened to you on those reports, and it's pretty. It is not nearly. As arrest stories are not nearly as funny. We have to write them down in black and white and be like, and then I was in a Power Ranger costume, and like,
I have to get So Hill out of here in a few minutes, but I want to run this one scenario by you.
Yeah.
Okay. Unnamed party. They go and they're looking out for houses in nice neighborhoods to rent. Okay? This is in Collin County. Not in bad neighborhoods, not an apartment, a full house. They go, they find the house after looking at 20, 25 houses. They apply for the lease. They pay the deposit. They move in. At that point, they figure out there are like 12 plumbing leaks in this house, and all of the windows in the home are inoperable. And the property owner, the landlord, knew that, still allowed them to move in when it's against code and safety practices and all of that in Plano to not have inoperable windows that would open in case of fire. The landlords are a realtor married to an attorney. What type of standard should especially that attorney be held to in terms of, hey, you're moving into my property. I got to let you know something, though. We've ordered new windows, but because of COVID, the windows aren't going to be here for 3 months, which means you're going to be sleeping in a home that's going to be hard to get out of, especially on the second floor if there's a fire. Does the court look at the way an attorney conducts business differently than the way a civilian conducts business in that, look, Mr., Mrs. Attorney, you rented this home out. You knew it wasn't safe. You knew it because you ordered new windows. You put these people in the line of fire. You didn't tell them. You didn't get an affidavit or a waiver signed.
There's a lot
how's the court look at all that?
So there's a lot of
attorneys in business, non-legal business.
A lot of issues there, but the premises have to be habitable, or you can start doing a variety of different things to essentially punish the landlord, which doesn't actually result in litigation. Like, there are ways where if it's something that makes the premises unsafe or uninhabitable, you can potentially not pay them. If you've given them proper notice and done everything you're supposed to, you can potentially not pay rent and use that money to fix whatever the problem is if the landlord is not using reasonable efforts to fix it. So, and this has been a while since I've had to do this stuff, but I got the highest damn grade in my property law class.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, maybe I might be able to remember this stuff. So, you can
Humble
be
brag right there.
the highest grade in the class is like that's one that we feel good about. Like, if you get that, there's like a shitload of people in that
Better
class.
shoot that grade to your dad.
Yeah,
have him
right?
reverse
Take a look
field
at
on that
this.
disappointment. Yeah.
So the premises have to be habitable. If they're not, there are certain ways under Texas law that you can deduct rent. Like, you can fix whatever the problem is and deduct that from the
sure,
rent.
but isn't the
So-
owner the attorney because they're held to a higher standard because of that oath? Don't they have to meet certain different types of standards than just, hey, this is my first rental, I didn't know, I'm just going flying by the seat of my ass, I have no idea.
That if
Negligence is still.
I think that if you were in court,
I'm just saying, wouldn't the court look at negligence by an attorney?
I think that
with more of a glare than they would look at negligence by just a civilian.
So let's say it was in like a JP court where, or let's say it was in a court where this is rare, but there are some courts that are smaller courts that'll handle this kind of stuff where the judge is not an attorney, and if an attorney did that to somebody who was a non-attorney or did something kind of shady, I think that they would. I like, for example, I saw something. It was one of my friends that she would like send me texts of like crazy shit this lawyer was doing to her. He would like write her weird notes or like act like he was going to file a lawsuit, and I'm like, you should report this shit to the bar if this guy really is an attorney. And I looked him up, and he was, and I was like, every time he sends you one of these weird things that makes it suggest like you're being sued or something, like, report his ass to the bar. Now, the problem is, like, if you're going into litigation and you're unrepresented and you're against a lawyer, he's going to know basics that are going to, generally speaking, make him look better. But at the same time, if he's totally in the wrong like that, this guy that's sending weird, creepy notes to her, like saying, you will find yourself served with a lawsuit, but making it look like she's already been served and has a court date. If they're doing anything like that, yeah, that's something that should be reported to the bar. But I think the main thing that lawyers can get in trouble for that is different than most people is if they do anything dishonest or unethical, like, that's where they get into much worse problems. Like, if they do other stuff like, oh, I was negligent, I wasn't really able to fix whatever I was supposed to, the court will still hold them accountable and may hold them accountable a little bit more because they're like, you know what you were doing.
But if you could prove that the attorney was being deceptive,
yeah,
intentionally deceptive.
Let's say they were doing anything that is lying or
fraudulent,
deceptive or fraudulent, that's bad. That's like all over our oath that you were just looking at. That's a big deal. And
you said some judges are not attorneys?
yeah, isn't that crazy?
How does that all? I know some judges are elected, some are appointed.
Right, and there's some judges that can actually, not in higher level courts, but ones that would handle like, you know, landlord-tenant issues or certain claims under a certain amount. There can be instances. In fact, there's a couple. I think at least one in Fort Worth I know that is not an attorney and is a judge, which is pretty crazy.
How do they know the law? Experience, and maybe they just
and
were
he's good
grandfathered
too.
in,
I love
really?
him. I actually went before him for some kind of ticket a long time ago, and he was just cool as fuck. I loved him so much back
Right
when I
on.
was a kid, and he was like,
Old
just help
school.
me move some boxes real quick, and we'll see if we can work on your you know.
awesome, man.
And then yeah, and I still practice. I had a trial, you know, this is years and years ago, but I had a trial in front of him, and I went up and after I whipped the other side's ass so bad that I felt bad on it. Which is
You ran him off the field?
I ran him off the field pretty hard, but like later I went up to him and talked with him. I'm like, I had a ticket in this court when I was a
Oh,
kid,
yeah?
and you were a really nice, amazing judge to me, and you were very understanding.
How do you react to that?
He was like, oh yeah. I thought he might remember me, but he has probably hundreds of people
Yeah.
a day in there. You know,
I'm
probably
sure.
Remember me, but yeah, he was like, oh, that's good. You know, thanks. I appreciate
Thanks for the
it.
compliment.
Yeah.
When listeners or viewers of this podcast want to reach out to you, reach you, what's the best non-cell number way? Email you, hit you on
I'd
social
say
media?
If you want to do something funny or wild, send me an email, texaslawhawk@gmail.com. If you like my videos, check out the YouTube, sometimes Instagram, sometimes Facebook. Just follow me on whatever, and you'll see them. I think I also have a Twitter, but
Yeah,
the
or
most-
hit me up, and I'll get
Yeah.
in touch with them for you.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll do. If you want to do some fun, wild stuff, I'm always down.
Or
for
if
that.
you get in trouble,
or if
and you
get
need the best in
arrested,
the West. Yeah.
you get arrested, you get injured. Give me
Need
a
the
call.
Law Hawk. Talons out.
If you need the talons of justice, call the Law Hawk.
Hell yeah. Thank you, brother. I appreciate your
absolutely.
time, man. Good to see you. That was awesome. That was awesome. Law Hawk is the real deal. He's awesome. So high energy. Very, very knowledgeable. I hope you took from this podcast that you should be out building your network. If you've got a small family, even if you're on your own, connect with good attorneys. Good attorneys know other good attorneys. That's the best way to find an attorney for whatever it is that you need help with. If you want to be connected with Law Hawk or other good attorneys, I've got lots of experience with a whole plethora of awesome ones. Law Hawk's an awesome podcast guest. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I'd love to know what you guys think. Drop a comment below. Like, subscribe to the channel. You can message me anytime on social media at Jess from the Northwest, both on Instagram and TikTok, and we'll see you guys for the next one.